It's strange, isn't it? How some people build their worth by standing on someone else's back. They don't need truth. They just need to feel taller than you. That's exactly what happened to Daniel and Emily, a young couple who moved into a small apartment complex with nothing more than 2 suitcases and a dream. They didn't have much, but what they had was love, genuine, imperfect, but real, and that made them dangerous to the kind of people who measure happiness in comparison. Their neighbor, a woman named Carol, had lived there for years, always watching, always commenting, always finding something to correct. To her, poverty wasn't a situation, it was an infection, and she wanted to make sure everyone else knew who carried it. On their first week, when Emily greeted her with a smile, Carol's eyes scanned her up and down before replying, "New here? Well, I hope you can keep up with the maintenance fees." That wasn't a question, it was a warning. From that day, Carol made it her mission to remind them of their place. Subtle remarks in the hallway, loud sighs when Daniel came home in his work uniform, snide laughter shared with other neighbors when Emily hung her clothes to dry outside. And here's the dark truth. When someone feels small inside, they find power by making others shrink. Carol didn't hate Daniel and Emily. She envied them, because even with less money, face herself, the humiliation began quietly, with whispers that slid across the hallway like smoke. Carol spoke just loud enough for others to hear, never loud enough to be called out directly. "She shops at the discount store," she'd murmur while Emily passed by, as if saving money were a crime. Neighbors would glance, then look away. Not because they believed her, but because no one wanted to be her next target. Daniel worked long hours at a mechanic shop. He'd come home with stained hands and tired eyes, and Carol would smile with that sharpened politeness that cuts deeper than any insult. "So, that's what you do?" Must be tough living month to month. Emily heard every word, but she pretended not to, because arguing felt pointless, like trying to reason with a storm. And yet, what hurt wasn't the teasing. It was how the world stayed silent, how neighbors who once smiled began avoiding eye contact, afraid to be associated with the poor couple. This is how social hierarchy works when unchecked. People cling to whoever seems stronger. A few weeks later, something shifted in the air. Carol's voice still echoed through the halls, but people had stopped laughing. The fake smiles she used to collect were gone, replaced by awkward silence whenever she appeared. It started small. One of the neighbors, an older woman named Linda, offered Emily a ride to the market. Another day, a young couple invited Daniel for coffee after work. The whispers that once spread shame were now turning into quiet sympathy. Carol noticed, and it infuriated her, because bullies don't just crave control, they crave audience. When the audience stops clapping, their world begins to collapse. One morning, Carol confronted Emily again in the lobby, her voice sharp, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "So I hear your husband's been late on rent again," she said. Emily froze. It wasn't true, but the truth didn't matter to Carol. Humiliation was her oxygen. Emily took a deep breath. Her hands trembled, but her voice came out steady. It happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon. The sky was heavy, dripping shadows across the complex, as if the world itself sensed what was coming. Carol's daughter arrived suddenly, eyes red, suitcase in hand. Neighbors watched from windows as she rushed inside her mother's apartment. Raised voices echoed through the hallway. Not anger, but anguish. Daniel and Emily tried to ignore it, but then they heard the words spill out, raw and breaking. "Mum, I lost everything." Silence. Then Carol's voice, strained, cracking. "That's impossible. You had the best schools, the best connections. You can't fail." There it was, the foundation of Carol's worldview. Success is earned through superiority. Failure is simply not allowed. But life doesn't care about status. Life humbles everyone. Her daughter sobbed. "I don't have anywhere to go." Neighbors who once feared Carol. The next morning, the building was unusually quiet. No gossip, no judgmental chatter, just the soft, uncomfortable awareness that something had changed. Carol barely left her apartment. Her daughter stayed inside too, their blinds closed from morning until night. You would think that people would celebrate the silence, but instead they felt unsettled. Because when a person who once dominated the space suddenly collapses into silence, it forces everyone else to confront the truth of who they are without the distraction of her noise. On Saturday afternoon, Emily stepped outside to water the small plant she kept by the door. As she turned, she saw Carol standing there. No makeup, no jewelry, no armor. Her voice was careful, like someone afraid their words might fall apart. "I wanted to apologize," she said, "for how I've treated you. For everything." Emily didn't speak, not because she was angry, but because she wanted to actually hear the apology, not rush it. Carol swallowed hard. "My daughter." In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere in the building felt different. Not perfect, but softer, more human. Carol began greeting neighbors with a quiet kindness. Her daughter found part-time work, and slowly, their apartment filled with laughter again. Not forced, not polished, but real. And strangely, people who once gossiped now came to Emily with their own wounds. Not because she was a hero, but because she had proven something rare. You can be strong without destroying others. One evening, as the sun set orange across the courtyard, Emily sat beside Daniel, watching the shadows lengthen like stretched memories. "You regret helping her?" Daniel asked. Emily shook her head. "No, because I've learned that compassion doesn't mean excusing someone's harm. It means giving them a chance to choose differently." Then, quietly, she added, "And I needed that too." Because the truth was, Emily still carried pieces of her past, the comments, the whispers, the shame that once told her she was less than. But by helping Carol, she began helping herself. Healing is never a straight line. Sometimes it looks like forgiving someone who once stood against you. Sometimes it looks like teaching them how to stand beside you instead. One afternoon, a new tenant moved into the building. She struggled with boxes, clearly overwhelmed. Before Emily could reach her, Carol hurried forward. "Here, let me help." Emily watched quietly. A tiny smile pulled at her lips. That moment, not the apology, not the breakdown, not the confrontation, was the real ending. Because transformation isn't proven by words. It's proven by behavior when no one is watching. Later that night, Emily stood on her balcony, feeling the summer breeze roll through the city. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The simple, quiet kind of peace you can't perform, only live. And maybe that's the lesson all along. The world will try to measure you by beauty, status, or wealth. But the only thing that truly defines you is how you choose to treat others, especially when it costs you nothing and matters the most. If this story reached you, if it made you feel, reflect, or heal, remember this. You are not the insults others have thrown at you. You are not the shame someone tried to make you carry. You are worthy because you exist, enough because you're human. So keep being kind, even when it's hard. Keep loving, even when others don't understand, because compassion isn't weakness, it's the greatest strength you'll ever own.